What's up, guys? Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Attachment Confessions today. I am super pumped that you're here. And for those of you that are new to the Attachment Confessions, my name is Chelsea, and I am super grateful that you decided to join me today. From the moment that I discovered attachment science, everything about every relationship I'd ever been in finally made sense. And now I'm figuring out what it takes to earn my attachment security and have healthy, secure relationships moving forward. On the Attachment Confessions, we'll be diving into all things attachment science while you tag along on my attachment healing journey. My hope is that by sharing my story, totally cringe moments and all, you will also be inspired to embark on your own attachment healing journey. Last week's episode was so good, you guys. It featured my very first guest to ever grace the Attachment Confessions, Brie Neil. Brie is a licensed professional counselor who specializes in attachment, and dude, she shared so much insight from a professional's point of view, along with so many nuggets of attachment theory gold. So if you missed episode 4, definitely go back and check it out. Today's episode is inspired by one of the early attachment experiments that Brie briefly touched on, Mary Ainsworth's strange situation experiment. Now, this was totally new news to me and so freaking fascinating. So I had to do a deeper dive. Mary's strange situation experiment truly confirms why trying our absolute best to foster a secure attachment in our kids from the jump is so crucial. Hence, the name of today's episode. As I've mentioned before, John Bowlby is the father of attachment science, who's known for his pioneering work in this field. Well, Mary Ainsworth is right up there with John Bowlby, as she was also highly regarded for her work in the development of attachment theory. Mary's most notable contribution in all of this was her design of the strange situation experiment. So today we are going to get real deep. Now, according to Simply Psychology, the strange situation is a standardized procedure devised by Mary Ainsworth in the 1970s to observe attachment security in children within the context of caregiver relationships. And this experiment was conducted on infants between the age of 9 months and 18 months, which just goes to show how young attachment forms in children. The experiment has 8 phases to it, and there's a lot to go over within each of those 8 phases. And I'm not going to go into each phase into detail, but what I'll do is give you the Cliff's Notes version that I took away from researching it further. The experiment involves 3 different individuals who participate in the actual assessment. So we have the child, the mother, and a stranger. And the 3 of them were being observed on the other side of a one-way mirror by our girl, Mary Ainsworth, and her colleague, Sylvia Bell. Now, throughout the 8 phases, the child is observed in several short scenarios that either involve all 3 of the participants I mentioned in the room all together at the same time, just the mother and the child, just the child and the stranger, or the child alone. And the child's behavior when they are with both the mother and the stranger, just the mother, just the stranger, by themselves, and then when they are reunited with their mother is indicative of the type of attachment that has been formed, which then goes on to predict their attachment style in romantic relationships in adulthood. It is seriously so wildly fascinating, you guys. Now, at the time when this experiment was conducted and the results were revealed in 1970, there were 3 attachment styles that were identified. So we had secure, ambivalent or resistant, which is now referred to as anxious, and avoidant. And it wasn't actually until 1990 when my attachment style, disorganized attachment, was identified, which we now refer to as fearful avoidant. So I guess you could kind of say I'm a 90s baby. Anywho, here's the breakdown of the findings of the strange situation experiment. In terms of behaviors observed, if the child was friendly and calm towards the stranger when the mother was in the room with them, and they, like confidently explored their environment and just seemed really at ease when their mother was present, but then displayed a moderate level of distress when their mother left them in the room with the stranger, but they recovered relatively quickly and was more avoidant of the stranger when it was just the two of them in the room together, but then showed positive and happy behavior when reunited with their mom. They sought out mom for comfort and were easily soothed by mom. This was indicative of a child having a secure attachment. So, in essence, this would be described as children who have developed a strong sense of trust and comfortability with their caregivers, typically due to their caregivers consistently responding sensitively and promptly to their physical and emotional needs. So, shout out to the moms that were doing a solid job of cultivating both emotional and physical security in their kiddos. Next, if the child totally avoided the stranger, whether mom was present or not, and oftentimes actually showed fear of the stranger, then displayed intense distress when their mother left and was visibly upset and inconsolable the whole time mom was gone. But then when mom returned, they approached mom but resisted contact, sometimes even pushing mom away. Like they had an actual grudge towards mom for leaving them and were not afraid to show it. This was indicative of an insecure, anxious attachment. At the time the results of the experiment were released, they called this insecure, ambivalent, or resistant attachment. But from now on, we'll refer to it as anxious since this is what it's called now. So, kiddos with this type of insecure attachment typically exhibit behaviors characterized by anxiety, dependency, and conflicting emotions toward their mothers. They appear clingy and anxious in new or unfamiliar environments and show reluctance or even inability to explore freely. They experience strong separation anxiety when their caregiver leaves. They display fear or anxiety when encountering unfamiliar people, which is also referred to as stranger anxiety, and exhibit mixed emotional responses when reunited with their caregivers. Like they initially seek comfort, but then resist or even reject efforts by their caregivers to comfort them. They are generally difficult to soothe when upset, reflecting their underlying insecurity and anxiety about caregiver responsiveness. So, why does anxious attachment develop? Well, if you've listened to the attachment confessions from the very beginning, you'll remember that an anxious preoccupied attachment style is formed due to inconsistency in physical presence and emotional attunement from their parents or primary caregivers. And this could be because their parents are absent more than they are present, or it could be because sometimes these caregivers may be responsive and comforting, while at other times they might ignore or misinterpret their child's emotional signals, which, as you'll recall, is known as intermittent reinforcement. Because the child never knows what response to expect from their parents, they become anxious and insecure, leading to the conflicting behaviors observed in the child in the strange situation experiment. Okay, now for the last category in Mary's experiment. If the child did just fine and didn't seem to be bothered by the stranger and played like they normally would, showed no sign of distress when their mother left, and showed very little interest when their mother returned, this was indicative of an insecure avoidant attachment. Avoidant attachment is characterized by emotional distance, independence, and minimal visible reliance on their caregivers. So, in the strange situation, the child appeared much more independent, both physically and emotionally. They usually explored their environment without seeking any type of reassurance or comfort from their mother, and they typically displayed very little reaction, if any, to their mother leaving. And any distress that was actually shown generally resulted from actually being left alone rather than specifically due to mom leaving them. When reunited with mom, the avoidant child showed limited interest or excitement and often actually ignored or avoided interaction with mom altogether. They also showed very minimal difference in behavior toward the stranger and their mom, and they appeared rather nonchalant no matter the changes in environment or whether their mom was around or not. So, what are the reasons behind avoidant attachment? Remember, this insecure attachment style is created due to emotional neglect from their parents or primary caregivers. Now, the term emotional neglect sounds pretty extreme, which it definitely can be, but it can actually seem pretty benevolent on the surface, like, oh, quit your crying. Why are you so upset? Walk it off. Big boys don't cry. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Phrases we've all heard that seem relatively harmless. However, what you're actually doing when you use these phrases is you are totally dismissing the emotional experience of your child, which signals to them that they are not emotionally safe to express themselves and they must suppress in order to gain favor from their parent. So, even if the lack of emotional attunement seems like relatively no big deal, you're just trying to toughen them up, prepare them for the real world, right? Over time, if this is what is being drilled into the child, it is creating avoidant attachment due to the parent's consistent insensitivity or unresponsiveness to their child's emotional needs. Caregivers of avoidantly attached infants frequently withdraw support during challenging situations and may be emotionally unavailable or indifferent when the infant is distressed. So, very early on in life, the child learns that mom and dad are just not a safe place to show vulnerability. And this then leads them to romantic relationships down the road where they are unable to express their emotions or show true vulnerability with their partners. When caregivers frequently neglect, ignore, or even reject their child's emotional needs, infants typically develop an insecure avoidant attachment, thus becoming emotionally distant and overly self reliant due to their learned belief that signaling their needs has really little impact on how their caregiver shows up for them. So it's like, what's the point? So, for example, this is why the cry it out method that was popularized in the mid 1980s is unfortunately just not the way to go. Now, I probably have some listeners that practiced the cry it out method with their babies, totally thinking that they were doing the right thing, even though it was probably gut wrenching as a parent to just hear your poor sweet baby in such distress in the other room. Unfortunately, though, the research that is coming out now is showing that it is actually traumatizing to a baby's nervous system because it is imprinting fear, abandonment, betrayal, and mistrust from such a young age. The strange situation experiment overwhelmingly confirmed that a child's sense of emotional security and trust in relationships developed significantly during their first year of life, which is primarily shaped by the responsiveness and emotional attunement of their caregiver. According to Mary Ainsworth's caregiver sensitivity hypothesis that she released in the late 1970s, mothers who consistently and promptly respond to their infant's emotional signals, such as cries and gestures or facial expressions, typically foster secure attachments. These securely attached infants trust that their caregiver will be accessible and responsive even when physically apart, and reliable in comforting them when they're distressed. Now, on the opposite end, inconsistent or insensitive caregiving often results in insecure attachments being formed. So, what is the difference between secure and insecure attachment? Well, in a nutshell, secure and insecure attachments are basically broad classifications that describe how we think, feel, and behave in relationships. Secure attachment in adults is characterized by trust and stability and a balance between intimacy and independence. On the other hand, insecure attachment, anxious preoccupied, dismissive avoidant, or fearful avoidant, can involve fear of abandonment, emotional distance, or inconsistent reactions to intimacy and conflict. So, why was the strange situation so groundbreaking and imperative when it comes to better understanding attachment theory? Essentially, it was a massive breakthrough in identifying different attachment styles in infants. Mary Ainsworth's research showed that how caregivers respond to a child's needs so early on in their life can have a lasting impact on their emotional development, which is then predictive of how they will show up emotionally in their romantic relationships. The experiment provided a reliable way to measure attachment styles, which has helped researchers and clinicians better understand how attachment influences a person's relationships throughout their life. Ainsworth's work has also influenced how parents and caregivers understand the importance of emotional responsiveness and sensitive care in promoting secure attachment and healthy child development. Guys, being a parent is the hardest, most important job in the world, and nobody does it perfectly. Duh, we're all human here. But the secret isn't spoiling your kids or letting them run the show or appeasing them or ignoring them or belittling them or mocking them when they seem like they're being extra. The secret is being as emotionally attuning as you can be. Now, trust me, there is a difference between being emotionally attuning and coddling. Emotional attunement lets your child know, hey, I see you, I hear you. I understand that you're feeling angry or sad or frustrated or disappointed. Acknowledging their emotional experience and actually putting a label to the emotion that they are feeling. This signals to them that you care and are a safe space to show vulnerability too. Talking them through this experience, this helps them learn how to actually regulate and process fully through the emotional cycle. This type of emotional attunement teaches them that this is the way to treat others, and this is the expectation that you should have for how others should treat you as well. Also, setting and sticking to boundaries with your children, modeling what taking accountability looks like, and setting the same expectation for them is also a big part of this. So, this is the difference between emotional attunement and coddling. Mistakes will be made, plenty of them. But the mistakes aren't necessarily where parents go wrong. It's the lack of accountability and inability to repair a mishap or interaction with your child where many parents drop the ball. But guess what the root of this often is? It's the parent's insecure attachment. It is almost impossible to raise a securely attached child when you are modeling insecure attachment yourself. So, what's the first step in having the best outcome of your child forming a secure attachment? Healing your own insecure attachment first. It's twofold, really. Not only will the child feel healthy, secure love from their securely attached parent, they will also observe how their securely attached parents interact with one another, modeling healthy, secure attachment with a partner. This is why secure people tend to attract other securely attached partners. They are quick to decipher if a partner's lack of emotional attunement or lack of emotional stability feels unsafe or off putting to them. Now, for those of you thinking, great, Chels, I've already totally screwed my kids up according to all of this. Thanks a lot. I've said it before, and I'll continue saying it. Attachment is learned. It is literally never too late to course correct. One of the attachment experts I listen to religiously has couples in their 70s that come to her for healing their insecure attachments, and she's helped them to successfully restore their relationships with themselves and with their partners. Maybe your kids are older, like my age, in their 30s. It's not too late to share this podcast with them. Maybe your kids are younger, still living at home. It's never too late to open up this discussion with them, take accountability, model self awareness and continuous improvement, and work towards repair. Find a counselor like Brie from episode 4 who specializes in attachment. Read books like Attachment Theory by Tyus Gibson, or Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller, or The Body Keeps the Score. Check out one of my personal favorites, Dr. Sarah Hensley, for her online self-paced courses, online hybrid group coachings, or one-on-one and couples coachings that she offers through her attachment coaching services called The Love Doc. There are so many different avenues that you can take and resources that you can utilize to do the healing work. The ones I just mentioned are only a handful of suggestions. I'm going to go ahead and put links to all of those resources that I mentioned in the show notes for you all to be able to check out. Just take that next step towards healing. Nothing changes if nothing changes. The ball is in your court, and there is so much beauty to experience on the other side of healing your insecure attachment. All right, guys, that does it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to join me next Wednesday for episode 6. And don't forget to show the attachment confessions all the different forms of love, liking, following, subscribing, and sharing with anyone that you think could benefit from this content. I really appreciate you all so much. See you next week. Bye, guys.